This is the Huddle with Bill Michaels.
Welcome on, welcome all. We are broadcasting live. We're at Kelly's Bleachers. We are in Big Bend, Wisconsin, and that's where you can find us. To those of you all throughout the state of Wisconsin, we certainly appreciate you tuning in to us tonight. It's the Bill Michaels Huddle. It's brought to you by our friends at Bud Light. They're the official beer sponsor of the Bill Michaels Sports Talking Network. Good one tonight. Rather than having one particular person on site tonight, we got a myriad of guests all throughout the state of Wisconsin. Grant Bilse is going to be joining us from the Wisco Sports Show, who many of you just heard on the network. And he's going to join us coming up in about 15 minutes. Stay tuned for that. Dave Schroeder, WBAY TV in Green Bay. He'll be here tonight as well. Kevin Holden, CBS 58, in about an hour from now. And from Lacrosse, we're going to get Dave Carney. And he'll join us from WKTY Radio, one of our fine affiliates there. And he's going to join us about 20 after 7 tonight. And then we'll get into the rest of the evening will be our picks. Ben Kenny producing the program, and we will be rolling through all of this coming up a little bit later on as Ben Kenny and I will make our picks for the upcoming week. The implementation of many when it comes to the playoff picture, as you've got a lot to think about, a lot to look at when it comes to who can win, who can be in, who can be out. A lot of things, playoff-wise, a lot of things have to fall into place for many teams as they still have hopes, I guess, might be the way to put it. So, we'll see what happens tonight, but nevertheless, or happens beginning tonight, but nevertheless, and by the way, there is no games this evening. No games this evening. Every Thursday night football done. Sunday, it all gets underway with the very first game, which is the Rams and the Ravens. Everything else falls into place, followed by the Sunday night game, the Vikings here on the road, taking on the Green Bay Packers. And then the Monday night contest, which is Ben Roethlisberger's, as he discussed. It'll most likely be his final time playing ever at Heinz Field, as the Steelers at 7-7-1 are going to be the 7-8 Cleveland Browns to wrap up Week 17. And we'll know pretty good what the Packers need going in. Now, obviously, the Packers still need to win on Sunday night, but you'll know if they win on Sunday night, you'll know whether or not the Packers can rest players in Detroit the following week, or if they need to win that contest as well. And then the Cardinals on the road taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys only a game behind the Green Bay Packers. Cowboys also holding the tiebreaker right now in the conference over the Green Bay Packers. So if the Cardinals should go into AT&T Stadium and get the win, then the Packers need only to beat the Vikings, and they seal the number 1 overall seed in the NFC. Home field advantage at Lambeau Field. And in addition to that, they can then rest a few guys when it comes to the game against Detroit. So all of that we'll discuss a little bit later on tonight and coming up. In the meantime, the Green Bay Packers and the Vikings going to square off at Lambeau Field Sunday. It's the 12th time in the last 14 seasons that these two teams have gotten it underway in a prime time contest, and it's going to be just the second time in January for the Packers and the Vikings during the regular season to match up. They did it again back in 2015, and each of the last 3 matchups between these two teams have been decided by 6 points or less. Green Bay has scored 22 points plus in 12 of the last 15 home games against Minnesota, and over the past 38 regular season meetings between these two teams, 25 of those games have been decided by 7 points or less, including a 3-point difference in the Week 11 meeting going over to Minnesota and U.S. Bank Stadium. So all of that under and upcoming. So also, by the way, including the postseason, Green Bay 15-10-1 like Minnesota with Aaron Rodgers as a starting quarterback. So just some things to think about. 877-867-1670. If you want to hit us up, do it. 877-867-1670. By the way, I was just kind of going through this because for those that wanted to kind of maybe wax nostalgic and get some of the thoughts of Al Michaels in the contest on Sunday night, it is not an Al Michaels game. It is a Mike Tirico game. And he'll be joined with Chris Collinsworth and such, but it is not Al Michaels coming into Lambeau Field on Sunday night. It is going to be Mike Tirico with the play. And Mike Tirico is fantastic. I was just kind of hoping to get Al Michaels for the fact that you're going to get a lot of the discussion regarding his time in the booth with John Madden. So good stuff. 877-867-1670. 877-867-1670. If you got any comments at all, you can bring them early. because after we get into this thing, it's going to be a lot of guests throughout the rest of the evening. Over in the AFC side, the Kansas City Chiefs 11-4. They hold the top spot right now in the AFC. The Tennessee Titans sitting at number 2 in the South. The Bengals in the AFC North. The Buffalo Bills right now on top in the East. The Colts sitting at 9-6 right now. Still have an opportunity, should they get a win and the Titans falter, to then tie the Titans and overtake them in Week 18. So the Colts are still fighting for something. So are the New England Patriots, who are also sitting at 9-6, tied with the Buffalo Bills in the East. The Dolphins, only a game behind them, coming out of the NFC or the AFC East as well, at 8-7. And then the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Ravens, also all at 8, all with aspirations to find themselves in the postseason. And there still could be some ramifications depending on how things fall between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. The Steelers have that half-game advantage over the Browns because they have a tie rather than a loss. Pittsburgh 7-1. The Cleveland Browns, with that extra loss, 7-8 on the season. So that game could become paramount on Monday night for those two teams efforting to get into the postseason. So there's a lot riding on it. Then the Packers, as I had mentioned, sitting at 12-3, but the Cowboys take on the Cardinals. The Rams are in the postseason. The Buccaneers are in the postseason. The Cardinals are in the postseason. That leaves the 49ers and the Eagles, the Vikings, the Falcons, and the Saints still all fighting for some type of hope to get into the postseason. After that, you got Washington sitting at 6-9, and they're pretty much, on the outside, way outside looking in. They've got too many teams to catapult. But you still have some teams fighting right now for that third and final spot in the postseason in the wild card, with Minnesota, Atlanta, and New Orleans all sitting there with the exact same record. So there's a lot riding on this weekend still, as we have the expanded wild card, the super wild card weekend, and a lot of thoughts when it comes to that because, again, you're looking at if the Packers by chance should lose, and Minnesota's going to tighten their grip on a playoff spot. But if they ended up getting beat and the Packers get the win, the Packers could clinch. But then the Minnesota Vikings on the outside looking in, you start to go through all those scenarios. And then your head begins to hurt, really, to be quite honest with you. And in the meantime, Ben Kenny's Philadelphia Eagles are still hanging tough on that third spot right now in the postseason. Ben, how confident are you that the Eagles this weekend? Before we get into making our picks, but how confident are you they get a win?
Not at all. Not in the slightest. It's a noon game in Washington, and if we know anything about that crap hole of a stadium, it's that terrible things happen.
Yeah, it's FedEx Field. Is this still called FedEx Field, by the way? I think it is.
I think so.
It is. It was one of those stadiums that was built before stadiums that were being built became fashionable. It was just a big stadium. It was a stadium there that was made for a lot of people rather than all of the amenities and the Hall of Fames and all that kind of stuff that we're seeing put into some of these things like Allegiant Field in Las Vegas, the new SoFi Stadium in LA, AT&T Stadium in Dallas. It was one of the ones, the early ones that was built and all of a sudden became antiquated almost as the minute it opened. And so, no, I agree. It's just it's a goofy, weird place to play, but that's where Philadelphia is into this coming weekend. So obviously something we'll at least with one eye open pay attention to. I'm still upset that we've got the two games we're going to get a chance to see, at least in my market, where I live, down in the Milwaukee area. It's the Giants and the Bears and the Rams and the Ravens. We're not going to get a chance to see the Bills hosting the Falcons, or the Bengals and the Chiefs, which is really a solid game, or the Raiders trying to get into the postseason with the Colts sitting at 9-6, or maybe even the Dolphins and the Titans, or again going back to that Eagles and Washington game. We're going to end up getting the Bears and the Giants, which suck, and then obviously the Rams and the Ravens, as I had mentioned, and then the afternoon game, the game that I think every Packers fan is going to be watching, as to whether or not the Cardinals are able to go into AT&T Stadium, knock off Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys. Packers get a win Sunday night, solidify their number one overall seed. They're able to rest guys going to Detroit the following week, and still you have a shot at the possibility of, say, an NFC Championship game coming into Lambeau Field with Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys if things, all the chips begin to fall that way. So, and then obviously we'll talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers and such, but so many things going on this weekend, so many things and scenarios to pay attention to. And then one of the other things I wanted to mention coming up later tonight, and they'll have the screens here at Kelly's Bleachers out here in Big Bend, is the Wisconsin Badgers. Good luck to the Badgers tonight as they take on Herm Edwards and Marvin Lewis's. Marvin Lewis being the specialist in the out in the Las Vegas Bowl. And so good luck to the Badgers tonight as they're going to be taking on the Arizona State Sun Devils. So that kind of sets the stage for everything. Coming up here in just a few, our first one right out of the chute, Grant Bilse is going to be joining us coming up here in about 7 minutes. So stay tuned for that. A couple of different things to talk about. And again, the headlines, we talked a little bit about it today, but the headlines really still are. And I see this all over Facebook. I see it all over Twitter. I see it all over Instagram is whether or not he will or he won't stay and what it's going to mean to the Green Bay Packers if Aaron Rodgers decides to stick around or he can't stick around. And if look, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. While we enjoy discussing it, and it is a topic of discussion, I still feel like right now, this is one of those things where just sit back, relax, and enjoy it. Be happy. Randall Cobb's back at practice. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is back at practice. Yes, you do have some other people that are going on the COVID list, and it seems to be really kind of, when it comes to the Packers right now, the Packers are, I don't want to say hurting, but they're a sick team. They're a team that has tested positive in numerous areas for the COVID, and COVID continues to be really the story around the rest of the National Football League. You got Amari Rodgers, Ben Braden, one of the backup offensive linemen, Mercedes Lewis, Tyler Davis, who is also one of the tight ends. The tight end room is rather small. Josiah Dwara is really your only healthy tight end. Dominic Daff trying to come back from injury. Lee Kiki on the defensive front. He has tested positive for COVID. You still have Dean Lowry Clark. You've got TJ Slayton, Jack Heflin, but you've got Oren Burks, typical Leah, Henry Black, Kevin King. Kevin King should be coming back from the COVID. But you got so many guys right now. That's the big story, is so many of these guys have tested for COVID, and all the roster moves and things that they've had to make do with. It's been almost mind-numbing how many things have gone on in Green Bay. Packers are somewhat depleted. And I know right now the other story was asked to Matt LaFleur, hey, Bojorquez, your punter, has tested positive. Now they're hoping by Sunday night he can test back in. But because they've activated Jair Alexander and they've got Cole Van Lannon, who's been elevated to help out on the offensive front. And, I had mentioned Bojorquez, Tyler Davis, Kingsley Kiki, Aaron Adeoye, Adrian Ely, Jason Stanley, all these guys, are to the practice squad and COVID moves and all that stuff. Still, Matt LaFleur was asked about his punter. What happens if Bojorquez can't go? And Matt LaFleur basically said, yeah, we've got a plan B. We hope that he can test back in, but we've got a plan B. Should we need it, it won't be the worst thing in the world. Should they need it, it won't be the worst thing for them. So we, as far as the injury report goes, we talked a little bit about it today with Jair coming back. Bakhtiari still not practicing, by the way, which is concerning. You've got limited participation with Dominic Daphne in that tight end room with that ankle injury, but you would assume they're going to take it easy with him. Aaron Jones coming back from a bit of a knee. Again, a little bit, when I mentioned Tyler Lancaster as one of the defensive guys with the depth, he's got a back issue, not practicing, and that does not bode well. Hopefully he's able to practice tomorrow. If he is not able to practice tomorrow, chances are he's not going to be ready or not going to be activated for the game. He'll be inactive for the game come Sunday night. Aaron Rodgers has the toe. Billy Turner, another offensive lineman. They're still waiting to see what they can do for him, but I don't think he's going to practice. I think they're going to sit him out yet another week and see how he does with that knee healing up. David Bakhtiari is, though, a concern. They activated him to the roster, and he really hasn't done a whole lot since then. He has not practiced on the field at all since December 17th. So it's been some time since he's been on the practice field, and that does not bode well for his return either. Let's do this. We're going to step away and take a quick break. When we come back, Ben Kenny is going to dial up Grant Bilse. Grant Bilse, the Wisco Sports Show. We're going to talk with him a little bit about his thoughts on this team, how injured, banged up they are. Adam Thielen, the wide receiver for the Vikings, he is out. He had season-ending ankle surgery, but Dalvin Cook comes back off the COVID list, so he is back. And the run game, obviously, of vital importance to the Minnesota Vikings because the Packers were not very good against Nick Chubb and company and the Cleveland Browns against the run just a week ago. So they're going to have to shore things up if they're going to contain Dalvin Cook. We're broadcasting live here at Kelly's Bleachers. We're in Big Bend. That's where you can find us. Come on by and say hello. They've got a lot of first of all, they got good food and good pizzas. But a lot of beer specials tonight from our friends at Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the Bill Michaels Sports Talk Network. Stick around. We got a lot more of the Bill Michaels Huddle brought to you by Bud Light. It's coming up right after this.
This is the Huddle with Bill Michaels on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Seven of their last 9 third downs. This one's picked. Intercepted. As Douglas has got his second of the game. Contact throughout here, but then as he starts to cut right there, he's coming out of the route. Yep. There's a definite grab. Nobody can believe that wasn't called.
It was a hard-fought 4-quarter battle, and like I told our team, we'll never apologize for winning in this league, and I know it wasn't the prettiest of victories, but got to give Cleveland a lot of credit. Their guys battled, they were well prepared, and it made it a very exciting game that came down right to the end.
Those are the words of Matt LaFleur talking about last week, a tough, hard-fought game against the Cleveland Browns, something that maybe shouldn't have been that close, but was. And we now bring in Grant Bilse from the Wisco Sports Show joining us on the hotline. So, Grant, after seeing what Nick Chubb did to him last week and seeing that the Minnesota Vikings are getting Dalvin Cook back this week, concerned?
Maybe if Dalvin Cook was on another team. Dalvin Cook scares me, but for whatever reason, the Vikings just don't. I think it's a Vikings thing. I don't think it's a Dalvin Cook thing. I think it's a Vikings thing. I can't take him seriously.
The Vikings, Mike Zimmer has been pretty good at scheming against Aaron Rodgers for whatever reason, and not that they've been overwhelmingly successful, but against Matt LaFleur, he's one of the more. He's got a couple of wins against him. When every other team in the division has struggled mightily, he's been able to kind of figure a few things out. And the last time they were up there at US Bank Stadium, he was able to figure them out a little bit. I just don't see the Vikings beating the Packers twice in the same year. Do you?
Well, no, I don't think they'll beat them on Sunday. I guess they could. I don't mean to cast them off and completely discredit the Vikings. I think last year when the Vikings got the Packers at Lambeau, there were obviously no fans and it was windy. The point spread moved in that game, a sizable amount. The wind really knocked a couple of yards off of every Aaron Rodgers attempt. It completely changed the game. So when you talk about the Vikings getting them last year at Lambeau, I don't know. I'm not saying throw it out. The game still counts. The Vikings earned that, but that game's a little weird. Earlier this year at US Bank, and this is something I've said a bunch on my show, Bill, I think the Packers played really well in that game defensively. They did all the right things. They pressured Kirk Cousins about 41% of the time. They forced him to keep a bunch of jump balls. Thing is, Justin Jefferson made plays and Darnell Savage didn't. And Eric Stokes. Packers do everything the same defensively this weekend. The result will be better because the Vikings just can't recreate what happened in a really fluky game. Now, the offense needs to start faster, and that's something we can talk about because that's been a problem. But defensively, I think it's been a kind of a fluky, unlucky couple of weeks for the Packers. And I think if they just keep going, doing all the right things, things will turn around and the numbers will be a lot better than we've seen the last couple weeks against the Ravens or the Vikings or Nick Chubb, like you mentioned in the Browns.
With the broken toe over the month of December, Aaron Rodgers is 76 of 102 for 74.5% completion percentage, 10 touchdowns, no picks, and a quarterback rating of 130. Is this about the best we've seen him play?
I mean, I think this year, yeah, really excluding the Seahawks game and then the first half against the Vikings, where I think he was kind of working his way back from COVID. He's been brilliant. Now, there's been drives where the offense completely shuts down. They had a bunch of 3-and-outs against the Browns second half. And one drive in specific in the Ravens game that went poorly. But when this offense has been on, they've been darn near unstoppable. And, Bill, maybe you tested it too. I always feel like Rodgers and LaFleur are almost at their best when you use them to work a little bit harder, force them to adjust and actually get their hands dirty and work. Like against Arizona, it forced them to come up with a game plan and stick to that game plan. Or even in 2014 when he had a bad calf, he played really good in that playoff game against Dallas. Sometimes I think Rodgers needs a little bit of a challenge. You need to challenge him in some way, and that's how you see the best version of him. And I don't know if that's the toe, but yeah, I think he's looked as good as he's looked last year or this year, the last couple of weeks. He's been brilliant.
In the last 19 against Minnesota, Rodgers has thrown 33 touchdowns and only 4 picks. I mean, for as much as I know Minnesotans want to talk about Zimmer's ability to scheme defensively against Aaron Rodgers, and I saw that when he was defensive coordinator for Cincinnati as well, because Cincinnati beat Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. But Rodgers, short of maybe the pressure, he really hasn't made mistakes against this Mike Zimmer defense. Hardly. I mean, as a matter of fact, I would say maybe guys around Rodgers have been, more fault than Rodgers himself. It seems like he just picked Minnesota apart.
Well, and you hear this a lot. I was in the cities last weekend, Bill, and I was driving around and I was listening to K-Fan at the start of the Vikings game. And I know you had Paul A. And it's something I always know when I listen to K-Fan or Paul Allen or just talk to Vikings fans in general. They're always saying things like, oh, Matthew Stafford, he's always struggled against Mike Zimmer. Or, Mike Zimmer's always given Aaron Rodgers fits. It's yeah, but has he? Okay, maybe his completion percentage dips a little bit, but you're not turning him into a bad quarterback. And I think when we first started talking a few minutes ago about the Vikings and how I can't really take them that seriously, it's because that's what they hang their hat on, Bill. That's Aaron Rodgers struggles a little bit against Mike Zimmer. Okay, that's great, but you turn around and lose to Cooper Rush. You do all these other things. So I don't know. The priority seems to be with the Vikings, and the thing that they hang their hat on is Mike Zimmer makes life tricky for other quarterbacks. But if tricky is, 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, and that's the worst of Aaron Rodgers we've seen outside of the Saints game, it doesn't make a difference. Mike Zimmer can scheme up some blitzes, but unless you're turning off and scoring at a high clip, which normally they don't, you're still not winning. And that's what matters at the end of the day.
Bills of the Wisco Sports. Grant, how concerned are you about not only the COVID, but some of the injuries? You obviously have injuries with Amari or COVID with Amari Rodgers, and you get a little bit thin, although you do get Mark without a Scantling back. You were a little bit thin at the wide receiver position. Your tight end, Aguara, being the only healthy one at this point. You've lost Tyler Lancaster not practicing. Kingsley Kiki has COVID, so now you're thin up front defensively speaking. So how concerned are you between the injuries, the combination of the injuries and the COVID for some of these guys and the depth issues this team has?
It might be a twisted way to look at it, but I think the Packers have bottomed out injury-wise. They can't get any worse and still be a competitive team. So they're going to continue to get healthier. They're going to trend in them from here on out. Even if they only get Jair back. Let's say they don't get Bakhtiari, they don't get Za'Darius Smith. If they get Jair and Randall Cobb back, that's a huge shot in the arm. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers are now losing. They've lost Evans and Godwin and Fournette, and their secondary's been banged up all year. So, yeah, the Packers have been in rough shape with COVID, not as rough as other teams with injuries, but they're going to trend in the right direction where I think everyone else in the league is at their best version, and they're going to trend more poorly. You mentioned the defensive line, and maybe this you've noticed, Bill, but when you watch Kenny Clark, it almost seems like a couple of weeks, right? Like Kenny Clark kind of starts the year just fine, good defensive lineman, and then every week you're like, man, he's playing out, he's playing great. Every week it's better, and I think at any point you disrupt his rhythm with, a hamstring strain for 2 weeks, or a stint on the COVID list, it's going to take him a couple of weeks to get back to playing his top ball, because that's just kind of how he operates if you watch him over the course of a season and he misses time. So I think they're going to get healthier while other teams are getting more banged up, and I think Kenny Clark is going to get stronger over the next couple of weeks. So hopefully he's peaking divisional round NFC championship game time if the Packers are lucky enough to go that far.
What are you doing? What are you thinking about Bajorquez? Now, I know they're hoping he tests negative and he's able to punt on Sunday night, but Matt LaFleur says, we got a plan B. I don't know what that plan B is, and I don't think you want your place kicker and kickoff guy doing something different because it is a different use of your leg muscle. I'd hate to see him pull a groin muscle or something or a hamstring because he's punting and take him away from kickoff duties. There's got to be, they have to have somebody else, you would assume, right?
Well, yeah, God, I'd hope. You've covered this Packers team longer than I have, Bill, and much more closely. Like, have you remembered something like this happening before where they've had an emergency punter? I can't remember.
I remember an emergency kicker years ago, and it might have been, it wasn't Ryan Longwell. I can't remember who the punter was, but I think the punter had to kick or vice versa. And it was only for one game, but it happened like mid-game. Yeah. So that's the only thing I can remember from years back.
Well, the silver lining of this is the Packers are at home, so you hope their offense clicks. The last time they played the Vikings, if you exclude the first, and I'm looking at the game stats in front of me, so the Packers punted in the first half against the Vikings twice, and then in the second half they scored on every possession. Right, so that's what you're hoping for. Hopefully the Packers just don't have to punt very much. And if they run the ball and control the clock, and you can run on this Vikings defense, that shortens the length of the game and probably shortens the amount of opportunities you have to punt. So hopefully they don't have to punt at all. I'm kind of sneaky entertained to see who they use if they need to punt. That's kind of a fun entertainment wrinkle to this game. Of course, I'd rather have Bajorquez, but it'll be entertaining to see what they do.
The big statistic, and I talked about this with Paul Allen today, the big statistic I'm going to look at in this game, because both teams have stunk at it here in recent times, but since the Packers came off of that shutout against the Seattle Seahawks, their defense has not been able to get off the field consistently on third down. Last time these two teams faced one another, the Packers were 63.6% in conversion on third down, and the Vikings 69.2%. Both of those teams were able to almost just stay on the field and keep drives alive, and both defenses were gassed and winded. To me, I think this game's going to come down to who can get off the field on third down a few times more than the other. That's about it.
Yeah. And third downs, we've learned over the years, they're a little bit fluky, right? If a team is converting, let's say through 7 weeks of the season, if a team is converting like 80% on third down, okay, well, that's a sign that the offense is good and the quarterback is good and the play caller is good, but it's a really fluky number. So if a team's converting at a high percentage, you can expect that to come down. And likewise, if a team is converting at a really low percentage, you can expect that to come up because those things kind of balance out. It's kind of similar with red zone scoring percentage. There's a little bit of luck involved with that as well. I think down and distance is huge for this Packers team, Bill, because the way this offense runs, they like to run the ball, and they are a time of possession team, totally. So they're not afraid to go to third down, and they're not afraid to use fourth down either. The problem comes when on first and second down, Rodgers takes a shot and it doesn't land, and then they have a play that's not blocked up, and now you're looking at 3rd and 10. And then on third down, you throw an incomplete pass. And now it's 4th and 10, and you can't even go for it. So I think down and distance, as kind of cliche as it sounds, going to be really important for both of these teams, especially the Packers, because if you get in 3rd and short and the Packers can pick it up, or they can go for it on 4th down, this offense just hums, but not if they're looking at 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12. And that's kind of bit them a couple of times the last few weeks.
Grant, good stuff. Appreciate it. Who you got in this contest, Packers or Vikings?
I think Packers. I think the Packers did so many good things the first time, and the Vikings they got a lot of good luck. A lot of jump balls went their way. Kirk was great under pressure, and I don't expect that to happen again. So I think Packers. And I think probably I think this will be a comfortable win. We're due for a game where they actually pull away in the 3rd and the 4th quarter. So I'll be positive. I think Packers, 100%.
Enjoy the night. Happy New Year. Thanks for coming on for a couple of minutes, and we'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Yeah, of course, Bill. I'll talk to you next year.
Absolutely, buddy. Talk to you soon. There you go. Grant Bilse of the Wisco Sports Show joining us for a couple of minutes on the hotline. Great to have him on board. Stay tuned. We got a lot more to get to coming up here in about 10, 15 minutes. We're going to talk with Dave Schroeder from WBAY TV in Green Bay and get his thoughts on this contest as well. Stick around. We got Mike Clemens, by the way, is going to join us coming up next just to kind of hang out for a little bit. Stay tuned. More coming up at the Bill Michaels Huddle presented by Bud Light right after this.
This is the Huddle with Bill Michaels on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
I think all of us are pretty locked in what's right in front of us. We know that if we start focusing on things down the road, it doesn't benefit you for the near future. And we know that we got a great opponent coming in here, a team that's battled everybody. I think they've had the lead in 14 of their 15 games. So to look elsewhere, we'd be doing a disservice to this football team.
Those are the words of Matt LaFleur. Welcome back to the program. It's the Bill Michaels Huddle, and we are broadcasting live. Kelly's Bleachers, we're here in Big Bend, and glad to have you on the Bud Light live stream as well for all of you watching, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, even over on Twitter and Twitch as well. And if you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, please feel free to go ahead and do so. Go to youtube.com/Bill Michaels Show. Joining us now on the hotline, our good buddy Mike Clemens is here. Michael, how you been, buddy?
I'm good. Just listening to LaFleur there, he did not want to have to get into all this crap about if Aaron Rodgers is going to retire or go to. He didn't want to do that this week. And maybe it's better to do it now than to get into the postseason when the national riders get here. But Aaron brought it up again on Tuesday. Who knows? Maybe one of Aaron's things also is he's trying to get that locker room to say, I may not be here, so you better put it all out, in the month of January. Because this might be your last chance to get a Super Bowl ring in a while. Maybe it's a motivational thing. I don't know. I don't want to think too far past that. But it's just, it came to light this week for whatever reason, maybe because this Vikings-Packers thing is not going to determine really, if someone's going to get into the postseason or not, because the Vikings' chances are so slim. But in the meantime, Matt LaFleur, COVID aside and all this other crap, it's just focus on Sunday night. Don't talk about January. Don't worry about whether or not you're going to play the Rams or the Buccaneers again or the Dallas Cowboys. Just beat the Vikings, and that's the way LaFleur operates.
So, Mike, let's start with the injuries and all the problems with COVID. No Bakhtiari on the field, which is still somewhat puzzling. Bojorquez, not only their punter, but their holder as well, has tested positive.
Hey, that's a good point about the holder.
Yeah.
And let me remind you something, because I heard you and Grant talking about that. Remember in the Buffalo Bills preseason game, and they finally needed to go to a punt, and J.K. Scott says, "Oh, I can't go.
Right.
I got a cramp."
Yeah.
And Mason had to go out there. Mason Crosby had to go out there and kick a punt. And so after the game, we asked LaFleur, "Why is Mason Crosby kicking punts there in the third quarter?" He said, because J.K. had a cramp. He did not look happy explaining that.
Right.
Like, dude, you only are needed for 3 or 4 plays a game, and about 3 or 4 weeks later, they cut him.
Mm-hmm. Didn't they have a situation like this like years ago? Was it John Ryan or somebody that had to either try to kick a field goal, or Mason Crosby or Ryan Longwell had to punt or something like that, if I remember correctly? It was years and years and years ago.
They've got another place kicker that's on practice squad. The prevailing wisdom is that they probably brought in a punter or two today, and they can throw him on practice squad and make him the emergency guy if for some reason Bojorquez doesn't get the negative test and can't play Sunday night.
So you've got Bakhtiari not practicing. Billy Turner still not back. Cole Van Lanen elevated, but you've got Ben Braden's got COVID. I mean, you're thin already over the tight end position because Mercedes Lewis is gone. You got a healthy Josiah DeGuara, but Dominic Daphne's coming back from an ankle injury. He's been limited to practice. Davis is out. There's some position groups that if they sustain an injury or two, they're in some serious trouble in this contest.
And this is stuff that LaFleur and Nathaniel Hackett do have to work on, keeping the postseason in mind about, okay, who is our second team guy and our third team guy? Because, Josh Nijman goes down to left tackle against the Browns, and there's a gasp. And they did put in Ben Braden. He's really a guard, and he was only in for a few plays. Now he's on the COVID list. And so then you see this Cole Van Lanen. That's the kid who grew up in Green Bay, just, within eyesight of Lambeau Field. And he played left tackle for a couple of years for the Badgers. But according to Adam Stenovich, the offensive line coach who's done such a great job with Luke Butkus, he said last night, you know what? He's a guard.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing fine. He's made a lot of progress because, frankly, he came in, a little undersized for what they're looking for at the NFL level. He's a big kid, height-wise, but he's got to put on 30 more pounds if he's going to play guard or tackle and ever get a starting job. So even though he's got experience playing left tackle in the Big Ten, that's not the guy that they're going to have behind Josh Nijman on Sunday night. So that was an interesting revelation there. Another thing is the tight end situation, because you had Mercedes Lewis on the list, and then this Tyler Davis, who has caught a couple passes now, he went on the COVID list. So that only leaves Josiah DeGuara, and they need another tight end there. Now, Dominic Daphne, he's been coming back from, I think it's a hamstring. No, it's an ankle injury. He was limited today, but they were looking at this Brandon Kafusi, 6'6", 270 pounds, 30 years old. They would just look huge in camp, and you're saying, man, I'd like to see that guy get one catch and just see if it takes 3 or 4 Vikings to try and bring him down. They've been coaching him up in case they need him as an emergency backup.
It's like a mash unit right now, trying to keep up with everybody that's coming and going and all the different roster moves they have to make, and certainly Gutekunst is earning his pay. Hey, Mike, real quick before I let you go, I know, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but I know Rodgers contemplated a little bit and expounded upon his future. And for the first time, I think, and I can remember in a long time, he said he wants to be in Green Bay. He kind of made that known. And one of the things that he didn't say was there was no discontent. It seems like everything's going in the right direction. He even used Mark Murphy's name in his dissertation. So do we just look at this and say, you know what, he's really happy in Green Bay. We think he wants to remain in Green Bay. Now let's just get to the end of the season and see where the money falls.
To me, what he wants to do is hold all the cards, hold all options, and if and when he comes back next year for Green Bay, he wants it his way. Either the money, or his buddy Devontae gets paid, or Randall gets to come back for one more year. I mean, those are the things he wants. And if you start taking those things off the table, then at that point, then he starts thinking otherwise, okay, I may go shop around and see what else other offers I get, or plan C, I retire. And that's the way he wants to play it. So right now he will focus on the next week's game, the playoff game, maybe finally get back into a Super Bowl. And then after that, he'll have to see what the Packers can offer him with the limitations that they have under the salary cap. And so that's why I think Rodgers is getting that out there right now. He's working the team. He's working that locker room. But he's also saying, you know what, a lot of things could change, and some of this is in the hands of the Packers. They could franchise Devontae Adams. So the Packers have some say in this as well.
Mike, great stuff. Appreciate it. And we'll talk again after the postgame, or during the postgame show, and after the game coming up on Sunday night. Okay?
Thank you, Bill. Happy New Year.
You too, buddy. Talk to you soon. There you go. That's our buddy Mike Clements, NFL Sirius Radio, joining us for a couple of minutes on the hotline. Coming up next, Dave Schroeder, WBAY TV in Green Bay. He is going to be here. Stay tuned. We got more of the Bill Michaels Huddle presented by Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the Bill Michaels Sports Talk Network. Coming up next.
A Huddle with Bill Michaels on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
You got to hit it, bang it, rock it, put it in the pocket.
Welcome back. Glad to have you. We are broadcasting live Kelly's Bleachers in Big Bend. KB3. Glad to have you tonight. As they got some music coming up a little bit later on one of the other stages up and around the corner. And we're kind of tucked away back here in the back bar. So if you're going to come over, you can say hello to us. Swing on by. And joining us now from WBAY TV in Green Bay, our good buddy Dave Schroeder is on the line. Dave, how you been, pal?
How's it going, Bill?
I am doing well. So let me ask you, what about this game, if anything, concerns you?
I'd say just the fact that the Vikings have been the only NFC North team to beat Matt LaFleur, and they've done it twice in a row. And the fact that Dalvin Cook is activated from that COVID list, that would be what concerns me. But on the flip side of that, I think the Packers could have easily won in Minnesota earlier this year.
That I agree with. Both teams were very good on sustaining drives. I talked about it earlier. I think third down percentage for either defense is going to be huge. Whoever's able to get off the field more often than not on third down, probably going to end up winning this game. But Aaron Rodgers, looking at his numbers, the NFC Player of the Month, Offensive Player of the Month, and looking at his numbers in the month of December, he's been nothing short of fantastic. And I asked earlier, is this the best I've ever seen him play or we've ever seen him play? For the amount of injuries, for playing with a broken toe, for COVID, everything that's gone into this, this might be the best December I can remember out of Aaron Rodgers in a long, long time, maybe even going all the way back to that 2011 season. Would you agree?
You know, it's tough to pick because he's playing at an MVP level now. He was the MVP last year. He ran the table with some really good performances in 2016. 2014, that offense was just off the charts every week, just blowing teams out, especially at home. You remember that year, it was like he got the fourth quarter off in like the last 6 home games, it felt like, because they were so dominant. And he had the calf injury. He fought through that well. So I'd say he's playing as well as he's ever played, but it's hard to diminish his past accomplishments at the same time.
So look at the defense. Let's start there. Right now, Tyler Lancaster limited at practice. Kingsley Keke is out with COVID. They got to be able to stop Dalvin Cook. Their tackling was not great in the game against Nick Chubb and company of the Cleveland Browns. Give me your thoughts about the guys up front right now.
I think that they're going to get a steady diet of Dalvin Cook until they prove they can stop it. And it's going to be a challenge. Clark talked about all the snaps he played last week, coming back from his bout with COVID and how much COVID affected him and how tired he was playing about 60 snaps by the end of last week's game. You'd think he'd have a little more of his legs under him, but still with fellow line mates dealing with COVID now, it could be a high snap count again. They're going to have to prove they can stop Dalvin Cook because Mike Zimmer, if you know one thing, he loves to run the ball, and he's going to instruct his offensive coordinator and his quarterback to run it until they stop you. I know Justin Jefferson can do amazing things and has against the Packers. But if you watch the game film from last week and you know that you have Dalvin Cook that you think is better than any back in the league, especially, against the Packers, I'd try it. The win the Vikings had at Lambeau Field last year was instructive in my mind. They used him in the pass-catching game and the screen game. He had a long touchdown. He had long runs against the Packers. He has been a thorn in Green Bay's side. And while I think the absence of Adam Thielen is going to diminish some of the passing threat and allow more Packers to be dedicated to the run, it's still tough when you got Jefferson and you've got Cook and you've got the performance he had last week.
Take Justin Jefferson. Who is going to be on him? Is it more of a which side of the field he's on, or do you put Rasul Douglas or Stokes on him?
I think it's going to be which side of the field he's on. The Packers defended pretty well last time around. Darnell Savage had his hands on 3 interceptions, if you recall, in that game. Mm-hmm. If they had come away with a single one, they'd probably win that game. The first one, a red zone pick, but a roughing the passer penalty negated it. That led to a Vikings touchdown. You lose by 3. There's 7 right there. Later in the game, Adam Thielen broke up a would-be interception that Darnell Savage got his hands on. And then in the final 2 minutes of the tie game, you see Darnell Savage appeared to come down with a pick, but was overturned on replay because the ball came out at the end as he was going to the ground, completing the process of that interception. So the Packers are in a good spot, I think, to defend this team. Dalvin Cook is going to get his yards. What you have to do is limit his touchdowns. As Julius Peppers once said, famously, yards don't win games, points do. So it's going to be situational football like you talked about. Third down, red zone defense, keeping them out of the end zone because Jefferson and Cook are going to put up some yards. I don't care how cold it is. You're just going to have to play well when it matters in those critical third downs in red zone situations.
How much do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to miss Mercedes Lewis? Not so much the safety blanket in the pass game, but more so he's a lot of help in blocking in the run game and in pass protection.
Well, to hear the Packers tell it quite a bit. For as little as his stats have been over the last 3+ years, his impact on the team has been marvelous. Beyond just the leadership qualities, just what he brings to their pass blocking game, what he brings to their run blocking game. I think that is something you cannot overlook. And if you do, you would be silly to do so because the Packers aren't overlooking it. Every time you ask a question about Mercedes Lewis, every coach, every teammate has glowing reviews. And sometimes you hear good reviews from players when they're asked about team just because it's the good PR thing to do. You answer the question, you say nice things. And that's not it with Mercedes. Every player to a man really seems to care about Mercedes and value what he brings to the team on the field.
So let me ask you, when it comes to the wide receiving core, you have Devontae. You're starting to get, not that he's going to be playing in this game, but you're getting Randall Cobb back. And he's starting to work out after his core muscle surgery. You've got MVS coming back. I hate to say they're going to start trending in the right direction, but if they can stem the tide on COVID, you get past this game. If you can package a win, let's just say they do beat Detroit and things are trending in the right direction. Boy, that week off could be huge. And this team, you talk about all the other teams that are kind of losing guys along the way. This team, dare we say, could actually become stronger after that week off if indeed they wrap up the number 1 overall seed. Holy mackerel, this team could be getting back towards, I'm not saying full strength, but a lot stronger. I would be extremely optimistic about the Packers if they were able to do all of that, get Bakhtiari back, we'll see what Billy Turner can bring. I mean, things would be trending in the right direction, wouldn't they?
It's funny to say that, trending in the right direction. They're already in the right direction. They're first place in the NFC without all these key causes. So just imagine how dangerous they would be. I think you're spot on with that. And for all the talk about when's Z coming back, Jair, David Bakhtiari, how funny would it be if Cobb is the first one back from his injury? He had surgery just a month ago and is practicing today. That would be quite the surprise. Yeah,
no doubt about it. What do you think the likelihood is that we see David Bakhtiari on the field at all this season?
I am kind of skeptical on that at this point. He started practicing coming off the pup list, had a setback, had another surgery, the minor surgery, started practicing again, stopped again, hasn't practiced. That worries me a lot. I know that he's a plug-and-play best tackle in the NFL type of guy. I would love to get a chance to see him in regular season before the playoffs if I'm the Packers coaching staff and front office, just to see, okay, is this guy 100%? How's he going to play? I know he's better than anyone in the league at 60% or whatever Aaron Rodgers says. Same for Jair. I'd love to see these guys on the field before you throw them into the fire of a playoff game. I don't know if they're going to have that luxury, and I don't know if they're going to be able to come back for the playoffs. That's going to be quite a story to follow in January.
No doubt.
I thought Bakhtiari was going to be back in October.
Yeah, me too. Dave, always a pleasure, buddy. Appreciate it. Have a terrific new year. We'll talk to you again soon, okay?
You too. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, buddy. Talk to you soon. There you go. Dave Schroeder, WBAY TV in Green Bay. We continue to spin around the rest of the state of Wisconsin. When we come back, we'll come back into Milwaukee. Kevin Holden from CBS 58 is going to join us after that. Dave Carney out in Lacrosse. WKTY is going to be here. We got our picks around the rest of the NFL. Another hour of the Bill Michaels Huddle, broadcasting live at Kelly's Bleachers in Big Bend. Come on out and say hello. We'll be back. More to come right after this.
This is a Wisconsin date.
Well, it's game day for the Wisconsin football team. They're going to face Arizona State tonight in the Las Vegas Bowl. If the Badgers are going to beat the Sun Devils, quarterback Graham Mertz is going to be a key factor, especially when it comes to not turning the ball over.
From my point of view, it's what can I do to help this team win? And I need to be more efficient, need to be smarter with the football. And when we were doing that, we were winning. For me, it's just going in every week with that mindset of what can I bring to the table? How are we going to be able to take advantage of this defense? It all comes down to protecting the football and then making a play when you need to. We started doing that towards the end of the year.
Badgers 5-1 in bowl games under Paul Chris. Kick tonight is at 9:30. Turning the Packers, they're going to be back out on the field again today as they prep for a visit from Minnesota on Sunday night. That should include quarterback Jair Alexander, who was activated from injury reserve yesterday. Not a guarantee he plays, though. Coach Matt LaFleur says they'll bring him along gradually. Meanwhile, quarterback Aaron Rodgers said yesterday that all options are on the table for his future after the season. Said he could see himself staying with the team, playing somewhere else, or even retiring. Three-time MVP did say this year has been the most fun he's had playing football. Kick on Sunday is set for 7:20.
Want to save even more at Fleet Farm? Well, now you can with Fleet Rewards. It's free to sign up, and there's no credit card required. Using Fleet Rewards is easy. Earn points every time you shop. Plus, get exclusive member offers, birthday and anniversary perks, free tire rotations, and more. Download the Fleet Farm app or create an account at fleetfarm.com/rewards to start earning points today. Fleet Farm. Proudly serving the Midwest since 1955.
Well, the Wisconsin basketball team held on for an 89-85 win over Illinois State yesterday in their first game in nearly 2 weeks. Badgers led by as many as 20 in the first half. Stephen Powell led the way with 21 points. Johnny Davis, 20 points and 11 rebounds. They'll be at Purdue on Monday. And the Bucks get to face the Magic tonight in Orlando. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heilprin.
Are you ready for some football? He talks green and gold. This is the Huddle with Bill Michaels.
Welcome back, and glad to have you. We are broadcasting live from Kelly's Bleachers here in Big Bend, KB3. Brought to you by our friends at Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the Bill Michaels Sports Talk Network. We are glad you're on board with us tonight, and thanks for hanging out. 1 hour down. I can't believe how fast that went by. Thanks to Dave Schroeder, WBAY TV. Thanks to Mike Clemens, NFL Sirius Radio, and our Green and Gold Insider. Also, thanks to Grant Bilse from the Wisco Sports Show. We now get into the second hour right away from CBS 58 in Milwaukee. Our buddy Kevin Holden on the line. Kevin, how you doing? Happy New Year, pal.
Happy New Year, Bill. Yeah, so I'm following Schroeder and Billy Mike. Like, oh man, this is bad. This is watching two 500-foot homers, and now I got to match that. That's scary.
I saw you driving for the first time out of your apartment today in the video that you shot, so you're good to go. You're just kind of coming out of the shadow, so to speak, right?
Yeah, the protocol is over, and that was just on my way to work, basically. So the alert's been given to everybody in a 10-mile radius. I'm back on the road, so everybody watch out. But we're in good shape. Fortunately, I was one of the really lucky ones that didn't have any kind of symptoms. Sense of smell was a little bit off. Like I kept smelling ashtrays, and I kept joking that I was on the set of Match Game with Charles Nelson Riley. But outside of that, it's all good.
An older reference. I love it. Getting back to the style that is the Green Bay Packers. Right now, their style is trying to keep everybody off of the COVID list, trying to get guys healed back up, trying to get a win over a team that has somewhat had their number, the only team that's really kind of had their number in the NFC North. So going into this game, what is your biggest concern for the Packers coming up on Sunday night?
What you don't want, I think, is you don't want a trend developing now that's a negative trend that goes into the playoffs. And I'm not really thinking grand scale. I'm thinking smaller scale. And specifically what I'm thinking of is that you add up the fact that Baker Mayfield was picked off 4 times, that all the things that went wrong for Baker Mayfield and the Browns still had a chance to win that game. That goes back to run defense. And the Vikings bring a pretty good run game to Lambeau Field and a little bit of motivation to sweep a season series because the rest of the year ain't going too well for them. So they can, this is kind of their playoff game to come in and win. So for the Packers, it starts with trying to find a way to, at least contain Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. If they can keep those rushing yards, you're not going to completely stop them, but if they can contain them and then win the game in other ways, this is good because, as you know, you get to the playoffs and the teams you'll face, those holes are less and less. So you don't want a bad trend. You don't want to go into the playoffs with 3 straight weeks giving up a ton of yards on the ground. And so, to me, I think that's a huge focus right now.
The Dalvin Cook aspect of this, I was talking earlier. Tyler Lancaster limited to practice. Kingsley Keke is down with COVID. You're pretty thin on the defensive front, and I get that you want to down Dalvin Cook, but he's as tough as, if not tougher, than Nick Chubb. I don't know how you do it. I mean, the only thing I can say is this team has been one of the better tackling teams in the National Football League. As a matter of fact, they're rated number 1 by Pro Football Focus. Fundamentally, this team's just got to get back to being sound. That's not going to be an easy thing to do in that cold weather on Sunday night.
That's right, and something that you suddenly have to snap back into after struggling the last couple of weeks with various issues, and Nick Chubb being the biggest one. I think that's going to be. There's a little bit of a mountain to climb there. I got to say, the more I look back on the season, the more I look back on what the defense has done, especially at the times when it's been really good, man, the more I just put a big old gold star next to Devondre Campbell, who's just a tackle machine. He's just that guy in the middle. And it's more than just accruing stats. It's a guy that clearly knows what he's doing, that's stepped up game after game and posted these great tackle numbers. So if you're going to start, maybe that's where you start. You do have to, put a little pressure up there on the front and try to, keep Kirk Cousins away from clean pockets. But if Devondre Campbell is his 13, 14 tackle self, that's a big plus for the Packers.
The secondary, who takes in your mind Justin Jefferson?
Where's Charles Woodson? Can we go get Charles Woodson? Man, that is a very interesting question because there's a lot to be run with. Like, is this the point where you decide Rasul Douglas is a guy? Because I mean, Rasul Douglas has put up some terrific numbers too. He's had huge plays in huge games. But man, Justin Jefferson is one of those otherworldly kind of guys. Like, if you did not have Devontae Adams in Green Bay, you would look at Justin Jefferson as maybe the best receiver in the NFC North, one of the best in the league. And that's, I don't know, that's a team effort, man. I almost want like a Woodson or maybe just swap out a healthy Jair Alexander from last year and swap positions around. I don't know, man. That's a tall task for any one person.
Aaron Rodgers' numbers in the month of December, out of this world, and you've been here quite some time. We've seen Aaron Rodgers pretty much from the beginning of his career. Is this the best he has played under the circumstances in all the years we've covered him?
Gosh, that's a really good question because there are a lot of really nice apples to compare to this current apple. Like 2011, just the otherworldly numbers that he was putting up in 2011, and honestly, the year or two after that, those were insane numbers. There was last year in the MVP. I think I'm most impressed with this because what you're looking at now, we know what Father Time does to NFL players, especially. We know that clock doesn't just tick on forever. Things are supposed to change, and Aaron Rodgers is immune to it at this point. He's not throwing interceptions. He's still coming up with big touchdown numbers. He is still, in terms of accuracy and avoiding mistakes, the best to ever play the game. That hasn't budged. And if there's a thing, if we're talking about the off the field stuff, whatever it is going to keep that chip on his shoulder, go right ahead, because there's no question that Aaron Rodgers, with a little motivation, is an even better Aaron Rodgers, and everybody wins, but especially the Packers win.
Who's punting? Is it Mason Crosby coming up, or are they bringing another punter? Or do you think? Obviously there's some question regarding holder as well. I mean, at this point in time, maybe you make Jordan Love your temporary holder for Mason Crosby, just in case you want to run some kind of a trick play. But you lose your punter and you lose your holder all in one fell swoop because of a positive COVID test.
Oh man, it is the thing about COVID. On top of all of the other things about COVID, is it is forcing strategic changes on the part of coaches. The teams that can adapt better are the teams that are better right now. I mean, when you lose everybody in a position group, you get stuff like Ian Book quarterbacking Saints on Monday Night Football, and so it's a little bit scary. Like there's the part of me that's realistic says, yeah, it's Jordan Love and Mason Crosby. And they lean away maybe from the punt game a little bit. And like you said, you can have a little fun with it. The part of me that wants to get freaky with this whole thing is like, just don't. What if Matt LaFleur got all, these high school analytic coaches that never, ever punt, 4th and 20 from their own 20, and he's just like throwing it deep, throwing arm punts if you have to. Like, that would be probably not what he would do, but it would be a lot of fun to see.
The Packers activate Jair Alexander. He's not going to play this week. They activated David Bakhtiari. He hasn't been seen on a practice field. Randall Cobb is now back practicing with the team. I think it's kind of like, I feel like as a fan, you're kind of hanging on to the edge of a cliff, and it's just like, just hang on, and things are going to get better. Suddenly somebody's going to grab you by the wrist, whether it's Cobb or Bakhtiari or Jair or somebody. They're going to pull you back up over the cliff, and things are going to be really, really good. You just got 2 games to hang on and get the number 1 overall seed. Do you get that sense?
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, because you have these mixed emotions, I do at least, about the season, which is when you say Jair Alexander hasn't played, David Bakhtiari hasn't played, Zadarius Smith hasn't played, the offensive line has shuffled, that story usually ends with ... and that's how they finish 7-10. That's for mortal human beings, that's how it works. But somehow the Green Bay Packers are 12-3 without those guys. So then you come to the question: if those guys could appear for you healthy, if Jair could suddenly be him that we know, and David Bakhtiari could be him that we know, would this team become the favorite to win the Super Bowl? The answer is absolutely they would. But the question that's there, the thing that causes the mixed emotions are this: Jair Alexander can't step in Week 18 in Detroit and be last year's Jair Alexander. That takes time because, I mean, as we know, the rest of this Packers team doesn't look the way they looked in Week 1, and thank goodness for that. So if you could get a totally healthy, contributing Alexander, Bakhtiari, or whatever, the Packers are heavy favorites to win the Super Bowl. I just don't know how much you can count on from them, at least at their elite level, after missing so much time. It's a lot of time they've missed.
Talking about, we're talking with Kevin Holden from CBS 58, by the way, about the upcoming matchup with the Packers and the Vikings coming up on Sunday Night Football. Going to be an extremely cold one. How much do you think still this game relies upon the arm of Aaron Rodgers as opposed to the grinded out against that Vikings defense of A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones?
I think it may be one of those situations where Rodgers has another very good first half, the way he did against the Browns, but maybe for a different reason. Like I think Matt LaFleur in his, if you ask him his ideal situation, Rodgers throws a couple of first half touchdowns. The Packers establish themselves defensively, and they go in up 14 or 17, and then that second half is run that clock, baby. Find John Kuhn. Give me A.J. Dillon. Just run. And I imagine that's what they would like to do, ideally. Minnesota's a pretty good team, and especially, again, in this game where I think the motivation is about as high for them as it's going to be. So you're going to get your best shot from the Vikings. I think it will be difficult to be up 14 or 17. But, again, in the ideal world, I think the answer is both. I think it's Rodgers early and a whole lot of A.J. Dillon and those guys late.
I know a lot of fans just want to see him emphatically win this game, blow him out, move on. But I still think this game's going to be close. It could be a score or coming down to a last possession or, God forbid, a turnover or something late in the ball game. I still think it's going to come down to which defense can get off the field the most on third down. But what changes the tide in this game for you?
It's going to be what the Packers can do. Again, when they're trying to stop that running game, it's going to be what they can do against Dalvin Cook, Alexander Mattison, and that is more than just a play-to-play, drive-to-drive thing. That's an all-game-long thing, because if the Vikings establish the run game early, if they are just eating up chunks of yards with Cook and with Madison, as you know, teams like that grind, and they push, and it's 4 degrees. And there's a point somewhere in the third or fourth quarter where a defense just snaps in half, and it's human nature. You're giving everything that you can against this team and just getting, beaten physically over and over. That is, if that scenario can be stopped, that's the turning point in the game. If they can keep that from being the dominant thing that the Vikings do, then it's the turning point. And the other thing about it is, I don't know if I've seen a year where it's more important to get the number 1 seed a week early than it is this year, because you go to Detroit, then you get a bye, and you have all of this stuff happening with COVID that you don't have to deal with for almost 3 weeks. I think it's more important now than it's ever been to secure that 1 seed and do it as soon as you can.
Kevin, who wins this contest coming up on Sunday night?
Give me the Packers, and let's make it 24-20. And you're going to see good from Aaron Rodgers, and I'm worried you're going to see terrible from special teams, but we've seen that. So we know what that play looks like.
Yeah. Unfortunately, hopefully special teams don't come into play for a game-winning field goal. So cross your fingers. Kevin, have a terrific new year. We'll talk to you again down the road, and thanks for joining us, okay?
Man, glad to do it, Bill. Glad to hear you're at Kelly's. It's one of my favorite spots, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, they got a softball field here. You are not allowed on.
It's weird. My Achilles started hurting right as you said the word softball. That's bizarre.
Good stuff, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bill.
There you go. Kevin Holden, CBS 58, joining us for a couple of minutes. When we come back, we are broadcasting live here at Kelly's Bleachers. We're here in Big Bend. That's where you can find us. Come on out and say hi. Brought to you by our friends at Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the Bill Michaels Sports Talk Network. Stay tuned. We got more to come. Dave Carney from Lacrosse and WKTY joins us next.
This is the Huddle with Bill Michaels on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Cousins from under center goes back, straight drop, passing right, Jefferson, yes, on the run, 40, 30, angles left to the 20, and he is gone! 71-yard touchdown.
I don't sleep well for several days after a loss, and football is so much more fun when you win it. And so, this week will be, you'll have that wind at your back a little bit more, but you got to start stringing something together.
I do think, sometimes he needs to be aggressive with football, and he's got to trust everybody. If you have a couple in there, they get tipped or something, so be it.
Welcome back to the program. We're glad you're with us. We continue on the Bill Michaels Huddle, and it's brought to you by our good friends at Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the Bill Michaels Sports Talk Network. And now we go back to the phone line, I should say. And talk about Dave Carney from up in Lacrosse, WKTY Lacrosse, as a matter of fact, joining us on the hotline. Dave, how you doing?
Big unit doing, and how was your Christmas holiday?
The holiday's been fantastic. We're just now trying to kind of get ourselves through this Packer season, and also keeping in mind that the Packers are as banged up as anybody and COVID-ridden and such, and they're just trying to kind of get back to something meaningful here. So tell me, what do you think when it comes to this Packers team and the biggest concern? Everybody's got an opinion on this. What is your concern regarding the Packers?
Bill, we've talked about this a couple of times on my show in Lacrosse. My biggest concern right now is special teams. Ability, not that you're not going to be able to possibly get into a game, but it can throw everything into a sort of tailspin, and you don't know exactly what could come from that. So to me, that's the biggest concern right now, is really just what's happening with COVID.
The defensive front is going to get tested. It's going to be a big dose of Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is back, and he is tested out of the COVID protocols. Are you concerned about the depth because of obviously Tyler Lancaster and limited at practice and some of his issues? Kingsley Keke has gone down. They don't have the same rotation of guys, and they're just getting thin. I mean, they've just got a lot of thinness and the tackling that they had last week that they displayed against Nick Chubb last week, not good as well. Are you concerned about Dalvin Cook?
Well, not necessarily concerned about Dalvin Cook, but what you mentioned about the Packers being thin, I think that's something that everybody's probably concerned about, but I don't think the Packers are alone in that, right, Bill? The Packers are not the only team in the NFL that's dealing with a number of different injuries, especially with the extra game being added on to the end of the season. And the NFL knew this had to come. The Packers have done a great job of going with next man up. What you saw this week and even the week before against Baltimore and against Cleveland, in my estimation, was a lot of unfamiliar opponents and a couple of teams that the Packers knew they could beat. That's the thing about the Packers. They know they can beat these teams. And unfortunately, you've talked about this a number of times on your program, they play down to their competition. I don't worry about Dalvin Cook, and I know we'll talk about the Vikings, but to your question about the depth of the team, I'm not ultimately concerned about that. It seems like Jair's going to be getting back out there. I do think that David Bakhtiari is done for the season, and I've never thought he would actually play this year anyways. But if you can get Jair back into the fold and everybody else remains relatively healthy and the four-time MVP of the NFL, Aaron Rodgers, stays on the field, then I don't really have too many concerns.
Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers and what he's doing here in the month of December. Now, I was asking everybody, I can remember 2011, he was on an unbelievably torrid pace when it comes to his numbers, statistics, the way the offense was performing. But what he's done with the broken toe, with basically a backup offensive line, and he's had in and out his wide receiving core, whether it was Randall Cobb playing or not playing, Marcus Valdes-Scantling playing or not playing, tight ends in and out, losing Robert Tonyan throughout the season. Obviously, Aaron Jones has had some issues. Look, with everything that's going on and the numbers that he's put up and being the offensive player of the month in December, this has to be, in my opinion, leadership-wise and overall, I think this is his best performance ever. Do you?
It ranks right up there. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is one of those quarterbacks, Bill, that's had so many incredible years. It's hard to say before it's said and done because really the true measure is going to be in the postseason. But sure, I mean, through 14 games, he's got, nearly 3,700 yards. He's thrown for 33 touchdowns and 4 picks off the top of my head. That's pretty darn good. And he's completing about 70% of his throws. I really feel like this season will be measured by the end of the season. Do they win the Super Bowl? But from a performance perspective throughout the season so far, he's doing what he needs to do, and he's taking what's in front of him. I've heard on your show a couple of times from different experts, he's not trying to do what the offense isn't allowing him to do. He's not trying to force it too many times. He's had that on occasion, but he's working with Matt LaFleur's offense. So, yeah, he's having a great season, but we'll see how this plays out into the postseason because that's where Aaron Rodgers' true measure is going to be made. And he knows that too. His legacy is going to be based upon how he performs in the postseason. And he's put all his chips to the center of the table on this one. And that's largely his doing. So I feel like we should judge him when we see what happens at the end of the year.
Talking with Dave Carney of WKTY and Lacrosse. Dave, so you mentioned the postseason and how far he needs to get. And I think he at least has to participate in another Super Bowl to really – his legacy and such is already pretty much intact, but if you want to expound upon it, really you need another ring. You got to get into that 2-ring or more category, but just to get there again would put him and elevate him on the same level, if not higher than Favre. So let's start off with what team you think would be the biggest deterrent for the Packers to getting to the Super Bowl in the postseason.
Well, right now, if you're talking about the NFC, and it looks like the Packers, if they beat the Vikings on Sunday, which they're going to do, by the way, and they're going to beat the Vikings by a lot. I know that Kevin was saying it could be a close game, and it very well may be, but I just don't have that in any of my predictive measurements, Bill. Everything I've run this thing through, the Packers are going to win by 2 touchdowns. Pretty much guarantee that a lock. If you got something on that, you should. I think that, look, for Aaron and his legacy, the Super Bowl is going to be so important to get to. It's going to be even more important to win because he doesn't want to be Kevin Garnett, a great player that won one and went to another one, but didn't really get there. The 2 Super Bowls are going to be really important. The biggest deterrent for him is really going to be, I think, the Packers' state of health, because outside of the special teams, and we've talked about this a lot, the Packers are in the top 6, the top 10 in most defensive categories. They're right there at the top in a lot of offensive categories, save for the last few weeks. I don't see that they've got a real big challenger. I mean, it sounds crazy to say that, other than themselves. If they can keep themselves on the right track, I think they can beat anybody this year. There's no dominant team in the NFL, and the Packers are sitting there at 12-3.
You getting back to the legacy aspect of this, let's say Rodgers doesn't win a Super Bowl and does win a Super Bowl. Does it matter legacy-wise either way?
Well, it does. I guess it depends on who you're asking and what the measurement of success is, right? Because that's different for everybody. If Aaron wants to be considered one of the greatest top 4 or 5 quarterbacks of all time, he absolutely has to win another Super Bowl. And the same thing could be said for Peyton Manning. Now, Peyton Manning might not have looked great in that last year with Denver, where he hoisted that Super Bowl trophy and Von Miller was the MVP, but he still got it, and it counts, and it goes on the resume, and that's why he's a top 4, top 5 quarterback. So if Aaron wants to be in that conversation, yeah, he has to win one. Now, if he doesn't, he's still going to be looked at and considered one of the best, most talented, physically gifted quarterbacks to ever play football, maybe the most physically talented. But we know what the narrative is, and we know how these things are written. When you win, and you win a lot, and you win in big stages, you're elevated above others. I don't think that Joe Montana's a better quarterback than Marino or John Elway or Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers. He just happened to be on a really good football team, and he worked the system really, really well. He also played with like 900 Hall of Famers. So, it depends on what your definition of great is and what you want your legacy to be. I guess that's a TBD depending on who you're asking.
Talking with Dave Carney of WKTY in Lacrosse. Before I let you go, Dave, and I know you already feel that the Packers are going to win this game going away. If there's a key to this game with everything that's gone on with COVID, obviously Bojorquez down, he's your holder as well. With everything that's happened, give me a key or two to this game for what the Packers need to do to get this thing pretty much sealed up and put away.
Yeah, what they need to do is they need to keep themselves away from having to kick field goals and scoring touchdowns and playing ball control. And they can do that, right? Aaron Jones should be okay. A.J. Dillon's been doing this. And as long as they stay on script, the Packers are going to be fine. The Vikings, as much as they, quote unquote, have to play for, they're out of this thing. It's over for them. They're just done. I know it sounds like, wow, that's being hyperbolic. As long as Green Bay can control the football, the Vikings will just fold up. That's what they do. Kirk Cousins in primetime games, guys, you know this, is 10-17. He's not a winner like that. So as long as Green Bay can control the football and make sure they don't have to kick field goals with a football bill that is going to be, as you know, too frozen for anybody to want to have to handle, let alone a new holder, they're going to be just fine. I'm telling you, they're going to be just fine. Think about this, Rodgers, in the month of December and January, the guy is 26-4. All right. He's got 30 games, 112 passer rating, 65 touchdowns, and 8 picks. It's cold in December and January. This is not new for the Packers. And Rodgers at this point, I think that he knows what's in front of him, Bill, is a stake at the number 1 seed. They win. Dallas loses to Arizona, which I do have Arizona beating Dallas this weekend, by the way. They've got the number 1 seed locked up. Then they can go ahead and rest if they want against the Lions.
Good stuff as always, my friend. Enjoy your New Year's, and we'll chat again. I'll chat with you on your show next Wednesday. I'm sorry I missed this week too, pal. I got hung up, but nevertheless, we'll have a good time next week. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks for everything, Bill. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. There you go. Dave Carney from Lacrosse, WKTY and Lacrosse, joining us for a couple of minutes on the hotline. And we are brought to you by our friends at Bud Light. They are the official beer sponsor of the Bill Michaels Sports Talk Network. When we come back, we start to look around the rest of the NFL. Ben, Kenny, and I are going to start making picks when it comes to not only the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings, but also the rest of the games in the NFL upcoming this week. And a full slate of games. Nobody's on bye. Nobody tonight. Nobody Saturday. You just got everybody on Sunday. And then Big Ben's last trip into Heinz Field coming up on Monday night. Stay tuned. You got more of the Bill Michaels Huddle brought to you by Bud Light coming up next.
This is the Huddle with Bill Michaels on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
I'm thinking it's going to be a physical game. Anytime you get the elements, which we normally have this time of year up here in Green Bay. Coming from the East Coast, I've played in it a lot, so I kind of feel adjusted to it. I know what to expect, and these games tend to be physical, gritty, and just kind of back to the fundamentals, and really honing in on the details this week.
Welcome back to the program. It's the Bill Michaels Huddle, and that's A.J. Dillon. He talks about, he was talking about playing in the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium, and because the field was so hard, they had to wear gym shoes instead of the cleats because the cleats weren't digging in, and how it was like being on skates. So he said, look, it's no big deal. I'm used to this. I've played in this stuff before. Lambeau Field, the field itself is actually better because they do have those heating elements underneath it, and they'll keep it covered until just about game time. It does freeze over when they pull those covers off, but the ground itself is at least tolerable to the point where your cleats can dig in. So they will have some, at least a little bit better footing coming up at Lambeau Field this weekend, rather than like the Pinstripe Bowl did going back some years ago. In the meantime, we now start to look around the rest of the NFL. You've got games of importance, and almost, I'm not going to say every game, because there are some games where they just really don't matter. But for the most part, you do have some games of importance. Ben, Kenny, and I have been producing the show back in Madison. We start to roll through. So the Rams sitting at 11-4, the Ravens at 8-7. Ravens needing to get a win. They're still chasing Cincinnati. The Rams wanting to hang on to the top spot in the NFC West. Otherwise, they could end up flip-flopping with the Arizona Cardinals if the Cardinals get a win, should they win that game against the Cowboys. But this game being on the road in Baltimore, and still Lamar Jackson still limping in practice, significantly, as a matter of fact. But the Rams are going to play in a cold weather climate. I'm taking the Ravens at home in this one. The Ravens desperately need it, Ben. I got the Ravens getting a slight win over the Rams, and I might see Huntley under quarterback or under center at quarterback rather than Lamar Jackson.
Without Lamar, I don't know if they could do it. We've seen Huntley, he's played well, but they haven't really gotten over the hump and won games and beaten really good teams with him there. So I'm taking the Rams. They're as you said, they're still playing for a lot and more than just seeding. They still have to win the division. So I have the Rams.
Game number 2, the Falcons sitting at 7-8, taking on the Bills, and the Bills sitting at 9-6. Now, in the grand scheme of things, you've got right now the Atlanta Falcons, same record as the Minnesota Vikings at 7-8. They're trying to get in. They get a win. Maybe the Eagles or the 49ers, somebody takes a loss. Same record. All of a sudden, you start to play all the different tiebreakers. They still have a legitimate shot. In the meantime, the Buffalo Bills, they have a lock right now on the top spot in the AFC East, and they are a tiebreaker better than the New England Patriots. But when you start to look at things, you say the Falcons going up north to play in Buffalo. I'm taking the Buffalo Bills at home in this one.
I mean, they also haven't beaten many good teams this season, or at least when they played them, they were not good. So, yeah, I don't think the Bills have any trouble.
Then you've got the craptastic game that nobody other than even the fan base in Chicago doesn't care anymore, as we watch the slow death of Matt Nagy. Bears at home at 5-10, taking on the Giants, who are sitting at 4-11. I'm going to take the Bears just because, but in the grand scheme of things, I know this is a game that we're going to have on the TVs on CBS of all places coming up this weekend. But I could care less, but I'll take the Bears just because.
Listen, the Giants are horrible. Without Daniel Jones, they can't move forward. However, they are also really bad at losing when they need to lose. For some reason, I don't know what it's going to be. I think the Giants are going to win this game, get a worse draft pick, and put them in a worse position for the future.
Yeah, they would be then a game better than their the counterpart at the Meadowlands would be the Jets, because the Jets are also sitting at 4-11. So, and the Jets have a tougher task with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this weekend. That being said, you've got Kansas City on the road at 11-4, and that win streak on the line against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Cincinnati, they can't get it. They've got 2 wins in a row. So they've won 2, lost 2, won 2, lost 2. Now they've won 2 again. They've tried. They're all flying high down there right now. They think that, oh my goodness, on their way to a Super Bowl with Joe Burrow, who threw for over 500 yards in the contest against the Baltimore Ravens. Kansas City, in the meantime, they've won 8 straight. Kansas City goes into Paul Brown Stadium and gets the win. Cincinnati, again, can't handle success. They suck swamp water. I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's crazy because if Cincinnati loses and Baltimore wins, I think the Ravens go into first place.
Yeah.
That division is only separated by a game and a half.
Yep.
But, I mean, the Chiefs just look like last year's Chiefs again. So
yep.
I'm with them.
You got the Raiders fighting for postseason spot. The Colts fighting for another good game. But this one's being played at Lucas Oil Field. And as much as I like the Raiders, Carson Wentz testing positive for COVID, I'm taking the Raiders on the road, even though Jonathan Taylor's going to get a huge dose of opportunities in this contest. And as much as I want to see him solidify himself, at least as he has grown when it comes to odds to win the MVP, he's grown more over the last couple. I don't think this is the game in which they're going to get it done. He may have a big game, but I think the Raiders ultimately win.
So with Wentz being out, I think the bigger absence is Darren Waller on the Las Vegas side. Their team is different when he's out. He tested positive for COVID as well. And I mean, let's be honest, the backup comes in, he plays for Carson Wentz, probably turn the ball over less and play a better game. So I'll have the Colts.
Then you got Darrell Bevell trying to get a win, and this time he's going to try to get a win up in New England. The Jacksonville Jaguars are just a bad football team. They're destined to maybe grab the number 1 pick again. They are, I don't know if you've taken a look at their roster. They are ravaged with COVID. I mean, ravaged with COVID. It is like, if you look at their roster, it is all listed as purple right now. I mean, I can't even count how many starters are down right now. Mickens, Chenault, Norwell, Linder, Barch, Manhertz. That's just offensively. Defensively, Josh Allen. Every one of their starting front linemen, short of Roy Robertson Harris, everybody else on defense, they only have 4 starters defensively that are not down with COVID. They are not going to win this game, even if Jesus Christ himself comes back from the dead and plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're not winning this game.
Yeah, I have the Pats. The Jaguars need to tank for Doug Peterson. They'll interview him next week. He'll come in. I think the Pats win big, but the Jaguars have bigger things in mind.
We had mentioned the Jets earlier. The Jets hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay is all fired up, not because they're just going to come in and try to win this game and get themselves a better seed in the NFC, but because Tom Brady is now on notice for throwing down the Microsoft Surface Pro. They're going to fine him the next time he does it. Woo, big deal. So I'm going to take the Buccaneers and a pissed off Tom Brady over the lowly New York Jets.
Yeah, Bucks big.
Dolphins 8-6. Can I believe that the Dolphins are about to enter into the postseason chase legitimately? The Dolphins right now, they would be just on the outside looking in. They are just behind the New England Patriots, a game back, 8-7. The Patriots are the cutoff point at 9-6, but the Dolphins could get a win. And should Indianapolis falter, or should the Chargers falter, whomever, all of a sudden they solidify themselves, because Indianapolis, New England, and Miami would be the 3 teams right now. So the cutoff point is actually Miami, not the New England Patriots. I've got this is a tough one because I really like the Tennessee Titans and what they've done. But I get a sense that maybe, just maybe, the Dolphins go in and get a physical, hard-fought win, and Tua comes out victorious. I'm taking the Dolphins in somewhat of a mild upset.
I have the Dolphins too. Listen, the Music City Bowl put on a passing performance that the Tennessee Titans will never put on. That was a 48-45 win by Purdue earlier today. The Titans can't do that on Sunday. I have the Dolphins.
So I got the Dolphins as well, and the Tennessee Titans right now, the number 2 seed in the AFC, should they continue to win, and so does the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's do this. Let's step away. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll finish up the rest of the NFL, including the Green Bay Packers hosting the Minnesota Vikings coming up on Sunday Night Football, and Big Ben's last dance at Heinz Field. That'll take place as well. Stay tuned. Got a lot more of the Bill Michaels Huddle. Another segment yet to go, broadcasting live from Kelly's Bleachers here in Big Ben. Stick around. We got more coming up right after this.
This is the Huddle with Bill Michaels on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back to the program. We're glad you're here. Final segment. Bill Michaels Huddle brought to you by our friends at Bud Light. We're broadcasting live at Kelly's Bleachers here in Big Bend, right off of ES. Love this place. Huge place. And we brought our motorcycle ride out here a couple of times. Love the staff and management. Really good food. Terrific place to come and watch a game, as you've been witnessing, not only the TV behind myself, but the TVs that are all up around this place. And plenty of places to view, not only just sports in general, but tonight, if you're going to come out and want to pay attention what's going on out in Vegas, you got the Badgers taking on the Sun Devils a little bit later on tonight. So come on by, say hi. They got some live music over on the other stage around the corner. So plenty of reasons to swing by Kelly's Bleachers out here in Big Bend, not to mention the Bud Light specials out here tonight as well. Ben Kenny joining us back in the studios in Madison. Ben, second half of the schedule. Your Philadelphia Eagles on the road at Evan right now, hanging on to the last spot in the playoffs, trying to get there. Trying to get back to the postseason for the first time in a long time. Will they do it against the Washington football team at FedEx Field?
Birds by a field goal, but the game's going to be uglier than the sewage that dumps from the pipes at FedEx Field. But I think they do it. And hey, the Eagle, it hasn't been a long time. It's been 3 years. 2 years.
It seems like forever.
One losing season.
It seems
and everything
like
had
forever.
to change.
It seems like, yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why things have to change. And by the way, for those wondering, you've got Doug Peterson is going to be interviewing with the Jacksonville Jaguars for their head coaching vacancy. The former head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, who took them to a Super Bowl and won it with one Nick Foles. So he'll be the former backup to Brett Favre, by the way, for those that didn't know. Yeah, I got the Eagles winning by a slim margin in this one. Then you got another good game coming up. The Chargers at 8-7, the Broncos at 7-8. Both teams just trying to get in, trying to hope, trying to pray, trying to get a few teams ahead of them, take some losses. There's still some hope there. Every time the Chargers, I think they've got this, they let me down. I'm going to go with them one more time. In LA, I'm going to take the Chargers to get the win over the Broncos. The Chargers get their 9th win of the season. I'll take the Chargers at home.
What they did last week. They had an absolutely horrible loss to Houston, I believe it was. I don't think they could do it twice in a row. And Denver just doesn't have an offense. I don't see how they score.
Not only did they lose to Houston, they got blown out by Houston. They had Herbert had a pit. Herbert started out the year on fire, and since then has really just cooled off and become almost mediocre. Throwing a pick six again last week, and Houston blew him out early in that game, and it was pretty much downhill from there. But yeah, I got see if the Chargers one more time. I'm going to go with the Chargers. Then you got the Houston Texans, who are screwing up a good thing by winning. They're sitting at 4-11. The 49ers. Many people seem to think it's week to week, but the 49ers are going to be some kind of fly in the ointment, whether it's for the Packers or anybody else in the NFC. I don't believe it. I don't think Garoppolo's that good. He's got the tendons in his thumb and the bone chip in his thumb and all that kind of stuff. Look, I still think the 49ers are going to win. But I don't think the 49ers are much of a threat to anybody in the NFC, to be quite honest with you. But I got the 49ers winning at home.
Yeah, I'm with you. If the Niners win, the Packers win, and the Eagles win, the Birds are in the playoffs, which does tie back to Green Bay because they played Dallas in the last week of the season, which could end up being a one-seed implication game. But I have the Niners here to put the Birds in the playoffs.
Speaking of that, the Cowboys taking on the Cardinals. And 4, they're on the heels of the Green Bay Packers. If they lose this game and the Packers win, the Cowboys are basically in that second spot, and the Packers are standing alone when it comes to the top spot in the NFC and can rest everybody. So we're rooting for the Arizona Cardinals sitting at 10-5. Arizona has not looked good down the stretch ever since Kyler Murray came back from injury. I think more in my heart than my head, I'm taking the Cardinals. If I had to put my house on it and actually bet real money, I'd probably take the Cowboys. But my rooting interest is with the Cardinals. That's where I'm going to go. So I'm going to take the Cardinals in this one.
Yeah, I'm taking the Cowboys here because it's not the NFC divisional round yet. So they could still win a couple games before they get to that point. And then we know what happens. So I have the Cowboys winning this.
Saints at home at 7-8, taking on the Panthers, who are at 5. And the Panthers have nothing left to play for at all. The Saints, at least, they're on the outside looking in, sitting at 7-8, tied with the Falcons, tied with the Minnesota Vikings, trying to get themselves into the postseason. I don't have much faith in the Saints because they don't have a quarterback, but I'll take the Saints just because.
I have the Saints too. The over-under for this game is 38, but the Saints are a touchdown favorite. So the Panthers are going to do anything because Sam Darnold's back starting, and I agree. So New Orleans.
Yeah. Then you got the Seahawks at 5. This is a meaningless game. There's not many meaningless games this weekend, but this is one of them. This one, and then obviously the game between the Giants and the Bears. This game is horrible. The 2-12 Lions going on the road, taking on the 5-10 Seahawks. I know Pete Carroll has talked about, what he needs to do to turn the guys around and turn this thing around. Meanwhile, the Lions are trying to end on a high note. Russell Wilson's Russell Wilson, and I still think that he's got that fight in him. He's never going to lay down and die. But I'm going to take the Lions on this one because the Lions, they got everything to play for. They finally got a couple of wins. They've got some steam under their belt, and they've talked about all week about ending on a high note between this week and then next week against the Packers. I'm taking the Lions on the road to get the win.
Oh, you're killing me. I was going to take Detroit. That was going to be my big miraculous pick. But yeah, I mean, their team is obviously not good, but they are playing hard no matter what. And I give a credit to Dan Campbell. But yeah, I think they go in and beat Seattle. Seattle seems dead. Nick Foles just went in there and won last week.
Yeah. See, you're right. That's a good word for it. Seattle does seem kind of just dead, for lack of a better term. Then you got the Monday night contest. Big Ben Roethlisberger, his last time playing at Heinz Field as his career comes to an end, an ugly end, but they're still hanging on. They're still trying to get a win. They're still trying to find a way to find themselves in the postseason. Browns coming off of the loss to the Green Bay Packers. Baker Mayfield had a horrific game last week. He is getting now death threats and such. He's talked about the internet death threats, saying it's no big deal, somewhat downplaying it. But I'm going to take, for one big heartfelt moment, I'm going to take Ben Roethlisberger and the Pittsburgh Steelers to get the win at home and pretty much eliminate the Cleveland Browns from any postseason contention coming up. So I'm going to take the Steelers on Monday night.
This is tough for me. I'm taking Pittsburgh too. I feel like I'm just copying what you're doing. But I feel I don't know if they're going to have towels there. But when they do have towels in that building, it just seems like it's tough to win there. And I mean, what's going to be the difference in quarterback play there? Big Ben is obviously a shell of the great Big Ben, but then Baker Mayfield has been playing like we've seen him play. So I have Pittsburgh at home. Their defense is too good.
Then you've got to the game coming up on Sunday night. Matt LaFleur reached 30 wins in his first 37 games as a head coach, tied for the third fastest in NFL history, only behind Paul Brown, to reach the 30-win mark, according to the Elias Sports Bureau. And he has been nothing short of fantastic. The one bugaboo has been at least the ability to get a couple of wins out of the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think the Vikings win this game. I think the Packers get the win. I don't think it's a big win. I think it's kind of a little bit of a nail biter. It's a cold, ugly game. Aaron Rodgers, the only NFL player to have 6 games with 4+ touchdown passes with 0 interceptions against the Vikings. I think Rodgers still has a good game, but I think the defense is right now thin. I think Dalvin Cook is going to come back with a vengeance. They're going to get a big dose of Dalvin Cook. I'm taking the Packers, but I'm taking the Packers in a slim one.
Yeah, I have the Packers by 2 points. It's crazy. The Vikings haven't played a 2-possession game, win or lose, since September 26th. So I think it would be a gross you'd be overconfident in the Packers to say that they could win this by 2 touchdowns. Because given where they're at with health, no punter, and how the Vikings have Dalvin Cook back, it's a cold game. There aren't going to be many points scored. I do think the Packers end up winning because, I mean, they have Aaron Rodgers. The Vikings have primetime Kirk Cousins. But it's going to be close. I don't see any way that this game's a blowout in either direction.
27-24, Packers get a win is what I'm picking.
21-19.
Ooh,
it's going to be a weird score. It's going to be a weird game.
All right.
No punter, bad kicker play. It's going to be one of those.
Including the postseason, Green Bay is 15-10-1 against Minnesota with Aaron Rodgers. And Rodgers has 55 touchdowns, 7 interceptions with a passer rating of 110. His passer rating is the highest of any opposing starting quarterback against Minnesota, and he has thrown 54 touchdown passes during the regular season against the Vikings, tied with Brett Favre for the most in NFL history against Minnesota. His next touchdown pass, he will then have more touchdown passes against Minnesota than Brett Favre did in his career. Yet another record will fall. There you go. That'll do it. We're not on the air tomorrow. It's the best of, but happy New Year to one and all. And we will reconvene again with the Green and Gold postgame show immediately following the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings game coming up on Sunday night. For everybody here at Kelly's Bleachers here in Big Bend, we certainly appreciate you paying attention to us and hanging out with us. Time for us to go.